ask you a question, and and we can get the viewers to analyze this too. If the situation was different, what I mean by different meaning if the creature walked into the U.S. camp as a clone and it wasn't pressed for survival, do you think it would have acted differently?
All right, welcome back. Welcome back, Alex. Welcome back.
All right, all right. How we doing? How we doing?
Excelente. Man, today we got one of our, and I can say this without asking, that this is one of our favorite movies, in particular favorite horror movies, but this is just one of my favorite movies in general. Today we have John Carpenter's 1982 classic, The Thing. As we know, it's a reimagining of the 50s version of The Thing from Another World, which was itself a adaptation of a book called it was a short story or a book called Who Goes There. The 1982 version of The Thing is more closely adapted from that original short story than the 1950, 52 or whatever version of The Thing from Another World, which is a whole nother conversation in itself. Let me just say that this movie is an absolute horror classic, but on top of that, it's one of the better films ever made. And if you look at it just from a straight filmmaking point of view, this movie is quite nearly perfect. So that's just my opinion. It came out in 82, man. This movie came out the same year as Poltergeist and a bunch of other movies in 82. It wasn't a big box office hit. And at the time, a lot of critics didn't really like it. But over the years on cable and home video, this movie gained a following, then it gained a cult following, and it became known as John Carpenter's, if not his best, his top 3 best film. And an absolute horror sci-fi masterpiece. Do you have, memories as a youth of this film?
Yeah. The first time I saw this film in the 80s, I remember I saw it at night. I think it came on, I didn't go to the theaters to see it. I think I saw it on HBO. It was on cable. And it scared the crap out of me. I mean,
Right.
the practical effects, man, the creatures, they just scared the crap out of me. I mean, some of the stuff never seen before, and still to this day, never seen anything quite like them, And it's just unnerving. It really is unnerving. So that's what I remember. I remember like some sleepless nights as a kid. Mom, can I keep the light on?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I remember, man, I was 4 when the movie came out. I don't remember the first time I watched it, but I remember it had to be, when this movie probably first came out on cable. And so you're talking, I don't know, late 82 or, excuse me, early 83, something like that. And, I was 5 in 83. My birthday's in January. So I vividly remember seeing Poltergeist when I was 4 or 5 years old. And I also vividly remember seeing this movie. Like I said, I don't remember the first time I watched it, but I have vivid memories of the thing and the different shapes it took, and like the head falling off and growing legs and everything about this movie. And I've always loved it. And you gotta remember, 4 or 5 year old kid. First of all, Poltergeist is one of the scariest movies, in my lifetime, especially when it first came out. And then to follow it up with something like this, the 80s were crazy. The 80s were insane.
To think of it was happening.
Yeah. And as a kid, you're not looking at the real psychological aspect of this movie and trying to keep up with who's the thing and who isn't. You just, you're there for the gore and the effects. As an adult, you start to understand, like, yo, this movie is really smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's smart. The characters are realistic, which is one of the things that made a movie like Alien so great. The characters just seem like regular people. They didn't seem like actors.
Working class folks.
Yeah, and the Thing is the same way. You really relate to these characters. You don't know them. You don't know anything about them really, but you just kind of relate to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
They're believable. So, to help the audience digest the confusing nature of this film, and when I say confusing, the movie itself isn't confusing, but if you actually take the time to think about what's going on and who is who, keeping up with the 12 characters is confusing. And because this is one of those movies where, and maybe this is one of the reasons why I didn't catch on as much back then, is because it was harder to rewatch movies back then.
Right, exactly.
And if you try to explain to someone what happened, like beat by beat, you would get confused. You'd be like, oh, wait, hold on. Is that Fuchs? Wait, who's that guy? What was... And hold on, how did that guy become... And it's one of those movies where unless you sit down and break it down, it is really confusing to try to explain exactly what happens. You can generalize what's going on, but you can't explain exactly like how this person died and that person died and who this person is and who that person is. So to make this a little more digestible, pun intended, we are going to discuss the characters and the actors playing them in the order in which they died. So
they died.
Right. So the first let me just start out. The movie has one of the better openings of any film when it comes to horror, because it just starts. It just starts. There's a helicopter chasing a dog. A little behind the scenes thing. It was actually a wolf dog. It was really skittish on set, but the helicopter's chasing a dog in Antarctica, and there's like the Antarctic camps down there for research and science and whatnot. It runs towards the camp that our main characters are stationed at. Well, come to find out, this helicopter came from a Norwegian camp. The helicopter's chasing the dog. There's a pilot, and a guy shooting at the dog from the helicopter and missing.
Missing terribly.
Right. Dog's weaving on his ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
When they get close to our main character's camp, they see the helicopter and they hear the gunshots, and they go outside and investigate. The helicopter lands. The dog runs to the camp. One of the guys that runs up to one of the crew. The guy with the gun gets out. He's pointing at the dog, and he yells something in Norwegian, which I had to figure out what this was, because there's no subtitles, which is freaking genius on the part of John Carpenter.
Nobody would have been able to figure out unless they could speak Norwegian.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Norwegian, I don't know if it was the pilot or the other guy. No, this wasn't the pilot. It was the guy who was shooting.
Yeah, the pilot.
Right. He says, in Norwegian, he says, "Get the hell away. It's not a dog. It's imitating a dog. It's not real. Get away, idiots." This is in the first 5 minutes of the movie. And there's no subtitles. He's speaking Norwegian. So unless you speak Norwegian, you have no idea what this guy's saying. So at this point, you do not know that this dog is the thing, the creature. For all you know, the helicopter pilot is a creature. He shoots towards the dog. He grazes one of the crew in the leg. The main, the station chief, he's got a pistol, pokes out the window, shoots the guy with the gun, kills him. So now they're like, oh my God, these crazy Norwegians, what's going on? Fast forward a little bit, they go back to the Norwegian camp to investigate. they find a bunch of bodies, frozen. Bunch of the camps burnt down, and they discover a body outside.
With Macready and I think it was Doc. Make sure I got Doc Cooper. They went outside. Now I think when they landed, they didn't see it, but when they went, well, I guess they went out back. They found a mass. At the beginning, I thought it might have been like just a couple bodies, but it actually was a mass, like the creature, whatever creature he was trying to form and absorb another person. So it was actually two bodies combined. It started they were up combined by the head, and then I guess the other parts were didn't get a chance to merge because they got torched. But it was frozen, and like I said, for this film to be, I guess, like the contagion level was just high, man. Like the mistakes were made, and if you watch it one time, you're not going to catch it because you're just trying to take everything and absorb it, and get the gist of the story. But if you rewatch it, you'll see all of these different opportunities where this thing could have contaminated everybody and everything. Yeah. And this part right here is definitely one of them. You're going to take the body. Doc and Macready actually wrap the body up and put it on the hospital, put it on the helicopter to take back to camp for an autopsy and examination, which I thought was just ridiculous. But
right,
you got to have a movie.
Right, yeah. So, they didn't know what it was, and it looked like a body, but it was all mangled up and
twisted.
So he says, Doc, get a shovel, and they bring that thing back to camp. Meanwhile, the dog is kind of roaming around the camp, and you get introduced to different characters, and they're kind of some of their personality traits a little bit. The dog's running around camp. All right. When they bring that mass of bodies or whatever it is back, they investigate it. The docs, do an autopsy on it, and he realizes, he said, man, it's human. It doesn't look human, but it's human. It's got human organs and everything, and this is disgusting mass of like limbs and weird stuff going on. Not long after, they ask Clark, hey man, go put this dog up, put him with the other dogs. So he's like, okay. He puts the dog in there, and I think this is about the 15 and a half or maybe 20-minute mark where the dog is put in with the other dogs, and almost immediately the other dogs start going a little crazy, and you get that first scene of the thing revealing itself.
Right.
And the dog, his face splits open, and he starts attacking other dogs in the cage, and they're going crazy. So of course the guys get alerted. They come down there, and there's madness going on in that dog cage. A couple dogs escape when they open the door, and there's like this mass creature in there with that's like trying to absorb one of the dogs at that moment. They get the flamethrowers, torch it. Now they got two mass mangled bodies. They do an autopsy on that mass of bodies, and the doc's like, man, this is dog, that's human, that's dog, or whatever. I don't know what that is. And that's when he's getting this theory together. Wilford Brimley, who plays, what's his character's name? See, I still can't remember. I still gotta go look and see who's who. Blair. Dr.
Blair.
Yeah.
Dr. Blair. He's actually a biologist, senior biologist.
Right.
So
right.
I get him confused with the doctor all the time.
Me too. But he's the one that kind of comes up with the theory that like this is a creature that absorbs other creatures and can imitate them perfectly. And he starts asking questions. He asks like,
how long were you alone with that dog?
I don't know, an hour and a half maybe. What the hell are you looking at me like that for?
But the whole time he's got in his head like, nah, I think you might have been contaminated.
A lot of strangeness going on. And I wanted to point out to you, I wanted to ask you too, that first incident that took place with the dogs and stuff, you kind of get, a really good gist of who's who in the group.
Yeah.
Of course, Macready, you got Kurt Russell, he's pretty much the hero. For me, I assume that he might have been, because this is a research facility, so you figure you got a bunch of everybody in here is kind of like government, I'm thinking he's probably a pilot, a pilot maybe
Yeah.
sometime did some time in Vietnam,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking maybe Childs was too, which played with by Keith
Yeah, he
David.
seems like it.
But
Yeah.
it's just, you notice when he enters a situation, he's like Stonewall. He's got the war face, man. He's got the war paint on him and Childs, and everybody else is just completely normal, man. Like the reactions, like when we brought up biologist Blair. He's actually getting trauma from like dissecting this thing and opening it up, and you just seeing him like taking moments trying to get trying to get himself together, man. And that's what I love about this film so much is that the normal people acted like normal people, man. And they
Right.
really like they took on a lot of trauma just trying to take all this and to figure out what the hell is this thing? What the hell
Right.
is going on?
And they never, what's crazy, like they never really grasped or really accepted, except for Blair, who he kind of figured it out early. The rest of them never really accepted what was going on until later on in the movie. Like it wasn't like, oh, some weird stuff happened. Hey, y'all, there's an alien in the camp. No, it took them a while to kind of come to grips with what was actually happening. Especially the fact that they didn't know who to trust. But yeah, after the thing happens with the dogs, then we get our first human casualty. All right, because a couple of dogs died during that, and that is Peter Maloney. He's the actor. He plays George Bennings. And the way I remember Bennings, he's the guy that had like the hair on the side, bald on top, kind of he's a ginger. He was like redhead guy. He's in the room with one of the mangled bodies that they torched. That's still because Blair had left notes because he kind of locked himself away by now, and Fuchs saw some of his notes that said the bodies are still alive. They're not dead.
Right.
And he warns
Still
Macready.
cellular activity.
Right. It's still cellular activity. They're not dead. And it's like it's timed perfectly because when he says that, they cut back to the body on the slab. You see like one of the little tentacles coming out of the sheet, and Bennings is kind of in the corner with his back turned. Yeah. And if there's something we love about this movie, man, that I love, is that you don't get a lot of direct interaction between the thing and the victims. There's hints that it's infecting someone. With Bennings, you actually see it. He's one of the few that you actually see. But for the most part, it's just hints that like someone was missing during a scene. And it's something you won't notice until you watch this movie multiple times.
You gotta watch it twice, yeah, or more, right?
Right. Because one thing I forgot to mention is a scene right before this where before the dog has the whole thing that happens inside the cage, the dog,
they put him away.
Right, the dog walks down the hall and into one of the crew's room. You only see the shadow of the person on the wall. But the thing is, Carpenter purposely made that shadow not look like any of the people in the actual film. It was like it was like somebody else. Right. It wasn't even somebody who was one of the main actors. It was just, I need a shadow on the wall. So
right.
You might think like, okay, I know who that is. No, you don't, because that's not anybody that's actually in this movie. And that's fucking genius.
Right.
That is genius. Because it keeps you guessing. That's why I'm saying that like you never really see the thing attack anyone except for a couple times. So even the audience, even though we know the thing is out there, we don't know who it is. And neither do they. And it's freaking genius. So Bennings, what's the guy? I keep wanting to say is Windows, but was that Windows? Yeah, Windows. Was the guy
Windows
who was in the room.
in there with him first.
Right.
Yeah,
he's the one with the glasses and the curly hair.
Came back, he's like, what the fuck?
Right. Windows leaves and comes back, and you see like the tentacles. Right. They got old Bennings. He's like this, and tentacles coming out.
They're coming out of his mouth. Jacked up.
Right. Like he's all jelly and shit. So he leaves to go tell Macready and Fuchs, and they come back, and the body's gone.
Crazy. That shit was crazy.
Right. They look. The window's busted. He's out. He put a jacket on. Whatever. He's out. He's running in the snow, and they go chase him down. And at this point now they know some, shit ain't right. Like they don't know exactly what's happening, but they know shit ain't right. And whatever happened to Bennings, they need to burn his ass. They knew that much. They knew that much. All right, so they get everybody out there, and Bennings is outside, and he's mid transformation basically. Like his arms are still like alien, but his face is Bennings. The one thing I like is that like the creature in this movie isn't like super fast and all this other crap. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's mid transform, like he's mid transform. Like he's not as mobile as, you know, he may want to be. He has if he's imitating a human, he has the limitations of a human. You know, it's not.
And
like,
that shot was beautiful,
right?
Because you didn't really see what was going on until he kind of raises up and you see his hands. You're like, oh shit!
Yeah, yeah. And he kind of makes a scream. Right. You just
scream was terrible, bro.
Right. It's like the pod people on Body Snatchers. Yeah.
Body Snatchers. Yeah. But that howl he made was just something that you'll always remember that one scene right there.
Yep.
Because it's like his eyes are just so big and wide open.
Yep.
It wasn't even like a wolf or anything. It was just something that wasn't of the earth. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It was different. And then they turn the barrel over and torch him some more. Try to burn him to a crisp so there's nothing left. The next person that gets killed is the actor's name is Joel Polis, and he plays Fuchs. Fuchs is the station's assistant biologist. So
he was assistant to Blair.
Right. So he's got a little sense, you know what I'm saying? Like he tells Macready at one point, we need to prepare our own meals and, make sure nobody's, alone, and prepare our own meals and whatnot. And we need to watch out for each other.
Right.
He's the second person that's killed, and he gets an off-screen death, where another way this movie keeps you confused is by not showing you who's killing who.
Right.
When they find Fuchs, they don't even know it's him.
Is it Fuchs? Yeah.
But right before that happens, Fuchs sees something. The lights turn off in his little lab, in his office. Somebody runs by the door. He's like, hey, who's that?
Right.
He goes to investigate. He goes outside. He finds like a torn up piece of Macready's clothes. And then it cuts away to a whole nother scene.
And what do you think about that? I just want your personal opinion on that. Like, I think that was a decoy, so he can get got.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like,
so he can get got. He like,
right.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
Right. The creature was setting their ass up. If you're a creature that's trying to disguise yourself as part of the crew, you will want to sow confusion into the crew so that they don't suspect you. So you want them to suspect someone else. So who's the person that seems to be the most like in charge right now? It's Macready. So I'm going to set him up to make it look like he's the creature.
Right. Cause more confusion.
Right.
Yeah.
Fuchs dies off screen, and it says they basically theorize that either the creature burned him or he burned himself. And to me, it makes more sense that he burned himself because the creature tries to take over as many organisms as possible.
Right.
So it would only make sense. Right. He committed suicide, burned himself up. Now he burned himself up real thorough. I feel like he had to dump gasoline on himself or something because he was like charred bones.
Yeah. And I figured it probably was maybe amidst the attack where this thing literally had to back off because he had put himself on fire so bad it couldn't even do anything to him. Couldn't do anything with him. So,
right.
Yeah.
Useless. So next we have Charles Hallahan. He plays Norris. He's the station's geologist. Okay, so Norris gets when you think about his death, it's a little confusing, but it is one of the most awesome scenes, at least one of the most awesome scenes in the movie. Probably the most memorable scene in the movie. Norris dies from a heart attack. Now, this comes at the time when they now suspect Macready. Macready was investigating along with TK Carter's character, was Knowles. All right.
Knowles, right.
They were going to inspect Macready's shack because he said he saw the light on, but he's like, I know I left the light on, so we need to go. Knowles comes back without Macready because he said, 20 minutes, everyone meet back here 20 minutes. Well, like 40 minutes later, Knowles comes back without Macready. He says I had to cut him loose. He thinks he's the creature because he saw like his torn clothes or whatever. Just the creature setting him up again. Macready is knocking on the door. He's freezing out there. They're debating on whether to even let him in. And they're like, one dude's like, open the door because he want to kill him. The other dude's like, we ain't opening the door. Macready's got, bundle of dynamite. When they finally, open the door, was it, all right, look, hold on. I already know what y'all thinking.
Anyone messes with me and the whole camp goes.
I already know what y'all motherfuckers thinking. Stop that shit right now.
Well, he already had it because when Charles was chopping the door down, you're dead, man. Macready was letting him know what happened. When he was coming in to get him, he was like, all right.
Macready's like, no, keep your skirt on. Hold on. Hold tight.
Hilarious, man. That part was so good. That part was so good, dude.
Yeah, during all that commotion and everything, when they try to attack Macready, and Norris kind of gets pushed into the file cabinet and into those filing the shelving. Norris has a heart attack, so Macready is like, look, y'all stop messing with me, but somebody need to help him. Basically,
go get the doc. Right.
Go get the doc. They get Norris, bring him in, set him on the table and everything. Norris has a distinction of, actually a few people in this movie have a distinction of dying more than once. He dies from the heart attack, but he's also a creature. So this brings me back to a question real quick. I think it's actually a cool idea that an alien creature who imitates you completely.
Yes.
Does the imitation have your maladies? Like, does the imitation have whatever diseases you had or whatever problems you had? Or does it fix those problems? You know what I'm saying? So that means that the creature imitated Norris. Norris already had a heart condition. So the creature now has a heart condition. But every individual part of the creature is like an individual. So like if the whole dies, then every part of it can just kind of, break away into whatever it wants, which is kind of what happened. Or conversely, was the creature faking a heart attack, like basically acting like it was dying from a heart attack so that it could then try to kill some others, but then like it would have to reveal itself, which is this movie's complete mind fuckery if you really think about it.
I agree with that. That second theory you had. The simple fact is because it was in a situation where the dynamite was the biggest threat.
Right.
I mean, it knew that that dynamite would literally obliterate that whole area. So in order for it to get itself out of that, it caused a distraction. That's what I think.
Right.
And it was done beautifully because you notice the whole commotion, everything stopped once he did it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And everything went back to kind of like everybody was ignoring the situation for what it was. And all right, well, we gotta save this guy and whatnot. Creature had everything planned, man.
Right.
That thing was so smart, dude. That thing was so smart, man.
So
I think he faked it.
Right. Yeah, me too. But Norris dies. I said twice. He actually dies like 3 times. So
yeah. Yeah.
On the table.
Yep.
On one hand, right. On one hand, like they're still kind of arguing with Macready, but Doc is working on Norris, and this is Doc Cooper. He's working on Norris. He's got the defibrillator, and he's hitting his chest. And this movie's these setups for these jump scares they're the best. They might be some of the best ever, because you see him slapping the chest with the defibrillator, like bam. This it cuts back and forth to this like 3 times. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And on like the 3rd or 4th time, he hits the chest and goes right through. Blam.
Clear.
And the chest itself turns into like a set of jaws.
Never saw it coming.
Right. Because it's done so
Never saw it
perfectly.
coming.
It's set up so perfectly. a little behind the scenes note for that scene with the arms get bit in half. You know, they made, of course, they had to make those arms. The actor who Richard Dysart, who plays Dr. Cooper, he wasn't the one who was standing there with the arms missing. It was actually a double, and they found a guy who was a double amputee. He had an industrial accident. The guy was a double amputee, and once they chopped the arms off, they just filmed him doing this and screaming, but they had made a mask, a mold of Richard Dysart's face and put it on that guy's face. So you honestly can't even tell when you're watching the movie, because the guy that's screaming isn't Richard Dysart, but he's wearing his face and he's missing 2 arms. Brilliant. It's freaking brilliant. Of course, these days it'll be done with digital effects or whatever. Freaking brilliant. So yeah, he bites it then when he gets his arms, basically ripped off. And at that point, the creature has been revealed. So of course, everybody starts panicking. They forget about Macready for a moment.
Right.
They start panicking. The creature's like shit's flying all out of his chest. They started flame throwing the creature, because like the chest opened up and stuff kind of flew up in the ceiling.
Half creature came out of it.
That had the face of Norris on it.
Right.
Right.
They had 2 forms. They had the body, and then they had the thing that was attached to the ceiling. Yeah, that's crazy.
And so they started torching it, and then the head, once it the creature's smart. Like once a part of it starts to die, it just separates itself. So they're torching that, and the head just kind of starts to stretch and slides off the back of the table onto the floor, and then whips a thing out and grabs and starts pulling itself. And they don't see it. It's kind of unbeknownst to them, because they're trying to deal with the other rest of the creature.
The fire.
Right. The creature is under a desk, and then like it sprouts the legs, the spider legs, which is one of the most memorable scenes for me ever in a movie.
The spider legs out of the head.
And it's like the sound it makes, like this crunching sound it makes, like, it's disgusting.
Crabbish.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Like crab. And it starts to crawl away behind the characters. And Macready turns around and he's like, "You gotta be kidding me." And you see a little thing like trying to walk away, and he torches it. So like Norris caught hell. Norris caught pure hell. You know what I'm saying?
He died. He died multiple times.
Like 4 or 5 times.
And I got a question for you too. Creature is an individual. This is what has me confused. Now, later on, you're gonna see that another cast member that was involved in this incident was a creature as well. So there were 2 creatures going on at the same time. You notice they never communicated with each other.
Right.
Not in the sense of they were trying to plot as one unit. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that leads me to believe that, do they become individuals after they turn?
Yeah, I feel you. I think
you see what I'm saying. Like
I think they're individually. They have individual like
desires, right?
Self-preservation.
Right.
Like individually, like they're not worried about the other thing. They're worried about themselves.
Yeah, me. I gotta keep me straight.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever happened to him, man. Fuck him. He's my identical twin. I don't care.
Saw like a small sliver when they were like when there was a point where they were kind of like yeah together, like yeah don't listen to that or whatnot. But it was just a small amount of time, man. And I was just like, these dudes are like actually they just become individuals like normal people.
Yeah.
Like you and a friend or whatnot.
A perfect cop.
Think about, man.
Perfect cop.
Right.
So yeah, that whole scene is just madness, special effects brilliance. The next person that gets killed is Clark, and he's the dog handler, and he gets killed by Macready because at this point they've turned their attention back to Macready. Hey, look, man, we still don't trust your ass. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Even though we just saw you torch these creatures, that don't mean shit. Like we don't trust you. And the paranoia has paranoia is all the way up at this point. Like, we don't trust nobody. Like, because earlier scene, like someone had broken into the little blood refrigerator and destroyed all the blood because they want to do a test.
Right.
What's the boy Windows? He kind of went crazy. Tried to stole a shotgun, and they had threatened
Yeah,
him.
'cause he panicked. He was
Right,
like,
yeah,
I don't know who anybody is.
Right. So it's fever pitch at this moment. Macready, who he's still ready for some action. He's like, look, first of all, I ain't no creature, and I want to back up to one scene real quick. There's a scene with Macready where it's the only scene that I remember in this movie where you see everyone in the cast at the same time except for Bennings, because this is after he died. And it's when they're standing outside, I think after they've killed Bennings, after they burned him.
Right.
And it's purposely shot so that it's Macready. You see Macready's back, and you see all the other 10 guys. Because I had to count them. I was like, man, that's everybody. That's crazy. It's the only scene I think that you see everybody. And Macready says, look, I know I ain't one of these creatures. And if all of you were creatures, you'd all attack me right now. So he said, so that means that not all of you are creatures. Using just, standard human deduction. He said, all of y'all can't be creatures. So some of y'all are human. We just got to find out how, who it is. So anyway, we fast forward, and Macready's like, look, I'm going to come up with a test. We got to figure out who's who, blah, blah, blah. And then Clark's trying to be sneaky. He had picked up a scalpel earlier. And he's like, yeah, guys, yeah. Let's trust Macready. He torched those creatures, really fast back there. And Macready, he's ready for. He's like, oh, well, hold up, Clark. Back the hell up. Stop getting close to me, homie.
Yeah.
He's trying to come up with the test, and Clark goes to jump him.
Yeah. Him and Childs kind of do a
back and
smoke
forth
and mirror thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because
almost got it.
Childs don't trust him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Childs don't trust him.
Nah.
Childs the
Like
only
him at
brother.
all.
Childs the only brother in the camp, and he act like he the only brother in the camp. He's like, I don't trust any of you motherfuckers.
You notice that they did not have a good relationship.
No.
Like almost from the beginning. Like he just
Adversarial
had
the whole time.
Problems with Macready.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, they kind of go back and forth, and then when Clark goes to jump him, man, Macready, blah, one through the dome.
Yep. Told him, I'll kill you.
Sure enough. So now he's conducting blood tests. They got a scalpel. He's cutting everybody's finger. They drip the blood into a little petri dish, and he's like, oh, I got a theory. And at the same time, he's talking, and this is just great filmmaking, man. Because there's one thing about doing exposition, and there's another thing about giving exposition when something else is happening at the same time. It's like when someone sits down and explains a story, it's boring. But if they're explaining a story during a chase scene, then you're like, oh, okay, this makes more sense.
Taking it in, right.
Right. So he's heating up the wire, that 10 gauge wire, whatever that shit is. He's heating up, and he's saying, I got a theory that every part of this creature is a living creature, and it'll try to protect itself if you try to hurt it. And the guys, he's got a few of them already tied up, because some of the guys are on his side, and some of them like, man, I don't give a shit what you say.
Right.
Right. So he's got some of them tied up or whatever, and they've injected some of them with morphine to keep him calm. The 3 people that he didn't trust to outright, he's like, I don't trust y'all. Child's like, man, this ain't gonna prove shit. You know what I'm saying?
Already bucking.
Right. Bucking hard. Yep. Brilliant scene here. Before we get into the next person that dies, when he's sticking that hot wire into the blood, his hand is holding the little petri dish, and he's sticking the wire in the blood, right? What's brilliant about that scene is that it was always a fake hand. So it's one of those things where, if let's say it was Kurt Russell's hand for every scene that he's sticking the wire in there, and then the last time he sticks it in and the creature jumps out, it's now a fake hand. Well, you would see that. You would kind of notice that. And the reason you don't notice is because it's always a fake hand.
Fake hand, I didn't notice at all.
Right.
Dude. Wow.
Right.
That's
and
crazy.
That's one of those behind the scenes things. John Carpenter and Rob Bottin and those guys, and they had to come up with a way to how do you make this convincing? And he said, well, if it's always a fake hand, you don't notice. And
It's the same.
Right, it's the same hand every time.
Mm-hmm.
So, because they needed the fake hand to be able to shoot the creature thing up through the petri dish.
Jumping up.
And it doesn't work with a real hand. So anyway, he's sticking the wire. You know, he's like, you know, he does what's the guy, Clark, the guy he shot, and it's normal. And this was, I think he does Clark maybe second or third, because the first few are like normal.
I think he did Doc's first. I think he did
Right.
Doc, then he did Clark, and that's when Childs talk shit. Oh, so you're a murderer now.
Right,
Talk
yeah.
shit to him.
He said, so Clark was human, that makes you a murderer. So, and Macready, you can see it in Macready's face. You can see in his face, like he's thinking that, like, maybe I'm wrong. Like, maybe this test is bullshit, and I'm not proving anything right now. And that's when was it the doc or the guy, the station chief, said something to him. He said, "Yeah, I thought you would say that. That's why I'm gonna do yours last."
That was Gary, the station commander.
Yeah. So that's when he says, I'm gonna do yours last. He sticks the thing in, and it wasn't Gary. It was, I forgot who it was. Palmer.
It was Palmer, the pothead.
Right. He does Palmer's, and the blood jumps out of the petri dish. You know, he drops it, and you see the blood on the floor, and then Palmer starts shaking in the chair. Palmer's tied up next to Childs and was it Gary?
Gary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, Gary. Yep.
So Palmer starts shaking and whatnot, and then his face starts deforming. Childs and these names, oh my God, Childs and Gary. You see them,
Gary,
they're panicking.
Yeah, they're trying to get away. Yeah, but he's starting to sprout, and his
Right.
starting to stick on the damn roof. They're like, because they're all tied up together.
Right.
Get away from them.
And they're like, yo, get us away from this thing. So it breaks loose and it jumps up to the ceiling. So that's Palmer. Palmer's the next person to die. At the same time, he's revealed as the creature. They torch him, but not before he kills Windows.
So, right, which I thought was freaking stupid, man.
Right.
That was a stupid death, dude.
He had a chance to kill him.
Yeah, the flamethrower was working perfectly, man. He just froze.
He froze. He
What
panicked.
happened? He died.
Deer in the headlights.
Freaking died.
'Cause Windows was the radio operator. He gets killed
He got-
by the creature. Right. Like the head of the creature, the head of the Palmer creature, like split open and turned into like a Venus flytrap almost, and just grabbed
Chomped his freaking shit.
Right, grabbed Palmer's head. I mean Windows' head, and started swinging him around. And remember
It
at the
was a
same
long
time,
death
now,
scene too, man.
yeah, it was like he got fucked up.
Yeah.
Gary and Childs are still losing their freaking mind. Like, yo, will somebody get us loose? So they torched. I think Macready torched Palmer because Palmer had dropped Windows over in the corner. Windows was dead.
Finally.
And he torched him, and then Palmer's body, you know, the monster like runs outside, and Macready throws a stick of dynamite at it. So yeah, he caught it right then. Palmer got it. He got his ass
Extra.
exploded. Just in case.
Freaking leg flipped in the air. Like, wow, dude. Yeah.
I would think though, like, and I shared this with you the other day, that a creature that can, any part of it can take over another creature. Like, the last thing I would want to do is blow it up with dynamite. You know, you got limited options up there. They're up there in the Arctic. They got limited options. So I would think, like, if I was in that situation, I'd probably dynamite his ass too. Because the little pieces are going to end up out in the snow and freeze or whatever. But still, it's still there.
Right.
You go back inside, and now Windows' corpse is starting to, like, you know, make noises and change and whatnot. And
Wake up.
yeah.
It didn't even get a chance to yell. It was it was whimpering more than anything.
Yeah, like it was just starting to change.
Even yell.
Yeah. So next we got, Windows was played by Thomas Waits. Next was Donald Moffat. He played Gary, and that was the station chief, the commander. Before we get there, let me just say something real quick. They finally finished the blood test. So he does like Childs, and he realizes Childs is human, so he lets him off. He cuts him out. Because Childs like, y'all cut me out of here now, please. Then he does Gary and realizes Gary is human. So he said, you know, I'd like to not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch. You know, let me out of here, please.
I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch.
His line was iconic, man, because he just right at the last part he lost it.
Hit that inflection, man. That inflection was like
right.
Yeah, he put some bass in his voice when he said that shit.
You know, to be honest with you, his character, I give it to Donald Moffat too. He really showed the trauma that had built. I think that after Bennings died, he really started going through like a downslope of like psychological issues.
He said that was his friend. Yeah.
Right. He just couldn't process it, and it showed real well. And I mean, and you got to be able to act to show it.
One through line that we haven't really mentioned too much is that Blair kind of had lost his mind earlier in the movie. Like he snapped a little bit. Like he's the one that had figured out what the creature was and what was going on. He locked himself away, and then they're looking for him because he wasn't where he was supposed to be, and come to find out he was like in the lab or he was wherever. He was tearing everything up, and he had a gun.
Wrecked the helicopter
and the snowcat.
Wrecked the exactly.
He had figured out, which you kind of find out like kind of in hindsight. He had figured out that we can't let this creature get away from this camp, even if we all have to die. So like he snapped, but he wasn't crazy. Like he knew exactly what he was doing, but he knew that the only way to do it was he had to take it to an extreme.
Right.
Like,
that was the only way to ensure safety.
Right. You weren't gonna reason.
World.
Yeah, you weren't gonna reason with the guys at the camp like, hey man, y'all can never go home. Sorry. Like there was no way to reason with them. So he just took it into his own hands and wrecked the helicopter, wrecked the snowcat, wrecked the radio equipment and whatever, and was shooting at anybody that tried to stop him. And they finally do stop him. They subdue him. They lock him in a little shack outside. Like, I mean, that shit had heat. Like,
Macready gave him a 2-piece.
Right.
Macready gave him a 2-piece. I said, wow.
Poor Wilford Brimley. He got diabetes, man. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that dude like that.
I was like, damn. But you know what? To be honest with you, you look at the fight that he put up. It was almost like he knew what was at stake, and he was fighting with everything that he had.
Yeah.
And he was throwing them guys around, man.
Yeah. He was tossing. Yep.
He was throwing them guys around.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Precisely.
He tossed Gary. And Gary looked at him like he was on the ground. Like, what the fuck? The hell is got all this strength from?
Yeah, that old man strength, man. Shit. He got locked away, and a couple times they check on him. He's like, "Hey, I'm good, y'all. I want to come back inside. I'm not insane no more, and this and that." You find out that he's been up to some shit while he's been out there. After that whole scene, after the blood test scene and all that shit goes on, Macready's like, look, we probably ain't leaving out of here, y'all. We need to destroy the camp. We need to burn the camp and kill this creature, because what it wants to do is get out there and at this point just freeze itself again for another 1,000 years until someone else comes across it.
Oh yeah, the rescue team comes,
Yep. He said we gotta heat this camp up and burn it so the thing dies and there's nothing left of it, even if we don't make it. So they kind of leave Childs behind and go do whatever. But this is one of those things where the movie kind of tricks you up a little bit, because Childs leaves where he is to go investigate something because he thinks he saw Blair somewhere else.
Right.
And the other guys, as Knowles, Gary, and Macready, kind of go under the shack where Blair was being held.
Blair was.
Right, because there's like a tunnel under there.
Right.
They go down and they find out that like Blair's been building a fucking spaceship with the spare parts that he broke off the other stuff.
Yep.
And he didn't get finished, but they asked like, he's like, well, what's he gonna do with this? He's like, well, go anywhere from here. They're down in the tunnels, and this is where Gary gets it, the station commander. While they're down there, the Wilford Brimley, who we know by now is the creature, another creature. And there's multiple creatures in this movie. That's what makes it so confusing. There's not one creature.
Right.
Like we just said.
Multiple.
it imitates people and has its own individual desires and needs and self-preservation. So it's not like the other creatures, you know, may have even known that the Wilford Brimley creature was making a little ship.
Right. Right.
You know, unbeknownst to them, you know, they were gonna get stuck there. He was gonna fly away.
He's going somewhere else. Right. Right.
Gary's down there in the tunnel. Blair sneaks up on him and sticks his fingers like in his face, and you know at that right, like it just absorbs his fingers into his face, and so you know the doctor, you know they don't really show much after that, but you know the doctor's gone. You know, I mean not the doctor, but the commander Gary, he's done.
And he couldn't scream because he had
right. It's covering his mouth. Right.
Right.
So they're down there, and Macready's setting up like charges, you know, setting up dynamite charges with the old school plunger. Of course, he doesn't hear Gary get taken out, and Knowles is down there with him. Knowles played by T.K. Carter, who we know from so much stuff back in the day, especially in the 70s and 80s. And I forgot, actually, I said earlier that Childs was the only brother. No, I'm sorry. Him and Knowles were the only brothers. And the trope of, I'm glad John Carpenter did this, the trope of the black guy always gets killed first in the movies, it didn't happen. Like the two brothers in this movie lasted all the way until the end.
Yeah.
And one survived. So that's one thing I always liked about this movie. Knowles is the next person to die, but we don't see what happens to him.
Right.
You don't even get a clue what really happened to him.
No, I mean it was almost like you saw him walking like he had saw something, and then like Macready looked up and then kept on working, and then looked up again maybe like 30 seconds later, nothing.
Right.
Like he had been just snatched.
Right. And you see, you know, Macready's like, everything good down there? He doesn't get a response. So he stands up, he's looking, and you see like the creature's like under the floor basically. You don't see it, but you see the floorboards popping up and everything, and it's coming towards him. It busts through the floor and snatches the plunger for the dynamite. So he can't hit the dynamite.
Can't blow the place up.
Right. And then the creature comes out, and like it's like this amalgamation of different creatures, but it's like the final form of the creature or whatever. Macready kind of rolls away, lights a stick of dynamite, and is like, "Yo, well, fuck you!" And he throws the stick at the creature, and then the creature explodes, but it also blows up all the other charges and gas and everything that's been around the camp. So the whole camp basically goes up.
Right.
And Macready gets out, and now he's, the camp's burning. He's got nowhere to go. He's outside. He's all beat to death, basically. And then here comes Childs. And I forgot to mention, actually, like the last person that died of the crew was Blair, because he was the creature. He was the final creature.
Took the stick of dynamite.
Right. He ate that shit. Here comes Childs, who, disappeared for a lot of that final act.
Right.
And then he reappears right after the creature gets killed.
Right.
So, the question is, and this is a question that people have asked for years, is Childs or Macready a creature? Because the movie goes off with them talking, basically saying, how do we trust each other? And they're like, look, I guess, ain't nothing we can do. We're not in much shape to do anything about it. So we just see what happens.
Sit here.
Wait here for a little while. See what happens.
sit here and chill. Right. And that's when the movie goes off, which is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant, right? Because your imagination is always almost always better than what you actually see. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
It's that the unknown is what makes it so interesting. And I'm to ask you, what do you think about this ending? And what do you do you think either one is a creature or both human, or what do you think about it?
Well, to me, thinking about it, I think that one of them was a creature. And I'd say the one that was absent was the creature, but that might be just a lot of speculation.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to like jump the gun and say yeah, definitely, because there's little signs there at the end, but you don't really know for sure. You know, you're thinking that after the main creature had died, got blown up, that was it. But I noticed that again, if you go back and look at the way the creature acted, once people got infected, the way that their kind of personality changed, a lot of people started getting a little more chill. You know what I mean?
Right.
And remember that Childs and Macready didn't get along at all. They were
Right.
spitting at each other pretty much for the entire film. You look at the end, what do you think? Child looks really chill, don't you think?
Right. Look,
And you want to drink and then man hand you the bottle, you want to drink from it?
Right.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Man,
I'll tell you this tidbit too, that the Xbox, the original Xbox in place, I think PlayStation 2 had a thing game.
Yeah.
And even in the game in the beginning, when the rescue team comes right after this happens, one of the soldiers reported that they found a body, but they didn't say who. So even in the game, Carpenter, I guess he didn't want to reveal. They just said a body, but they didn't say who it was.
Which one? Yeah.
So that's going to be continuing forever, man. I think.
Totally ambiguous. Yeah. This is one of those questions that even I didn't even start asking myself until like a few years ago, because I always watched the movie and I always just assumed, for whatever reason, I always just assumed they were both human. Like it never crossed my mind that one of them was a thing until like, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago.
When I originally watched it, I didn't really think too much of it. I kind of left the ending exactly as it is. But now, going back and knowing that I've seen it a few times, you want to analyze who was the creature and who wasn't. Yeah. And it just makes you think when you go back and look at all the details and the evidence of who was the creature versus who wasn't and how they were acting. It just, you want to kind of like analyze that scene and see which one of them was.
We got to talk about why this movie is so memorable to a lot of people and why it's so important when it comes to practical effects. And that's the fact that this movie is like a masterclass of practical effects, mostly done by Rob Bottin.
Rob Bottin. Mm-hmm.
But who's the other? Oh my goodness, why am I drawing a blank right now? He helped Rick Baker.
Okay, Rick Baker.
He helped. He wasn't part of. He helped with like one scene. Matter of fact, I think he had just did American Werewolf in London. Rob Bottin pretty much is.
Say that guy's name again.
Oh, Rick Baker.
Is that the guy that worked with Michael Jackson on Thriller?
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because he did American Werewolf. Yeah.
Holy shit! Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I knew I'd recognize the name, but I couldn't place where I knew it from.
Yeah. Oh, Rick Baker's all time. He's one of the all time greats. If you have a chance to look through his IMDb, it's insane. Rob Bottin was Rick Baker's assistant, and Rob Bottin, when he made this movie, he was like 21 years old.
Right.
When he did the effects for this movie, so he pretty much did everything. He did most of the effects on his own, and there was a lot of trouble behind the scenes with like some of the effects not working right the first time, and they had to go and reshoot scenes. The scene on the table, the big scene with the arms getting chopped off, they actually had to redo the scene of the head coming off because the first time the fumes and the stuff they used to make the inside of the neck and the body, it was flammable. So when they lit the fire, everything exploded.
Oh, jeez, man.
So he had to like redo all that shit and redo it again the next day. From a practical effects standpoint, the special effects in this movie are what you remember. Like if you don't, even if you don't remember the names of the characters or the plot or who the creature is or whatever, you remember the effects because a good sci-fi horror film should have memorable effects, in my opinion.
This film here was like I'd say practical effects, just A class, man.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, like, did you think that John Carpenter gave him like creative freedom? Because I mean, some of these creatures that he came up with, I mean, you figure during that point in time had never been thought of. I mean, even some of the stuff even topped Alien. To be honest with
Right.
you. Some of those creatures, the way they acted and the head breaking off and stuff like that. I mean, you figure at that time period, 79, that's when Alien first came out. That was kind of like top tier as far as sci-fi, man. And some of those stuff that happened in that film blew that out of the water.
Well, I'm pretty sure Carpenter did actually kind of just give him the freedom to come up with whatever, because if I remember the original story, the creature didn't have like a form. Carpenter's instructions to Rob Bottin or something like, it doesn't have a form, so be creative. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Based
on the situation, do what you want.
Right. come up with something cool. You know what I'm saying? But make it look different. Make everything look different, because there's no same creature anywhere in this movie. The only consistent thing that you see in one scene with the creature to another is like there's a dog in head in one scene, and at the end the final creature has a dog head on one part of its body or whatever. But otherwise everything is different. There's no repeated creatures. But if you haven't seen this movie and you appreciate special effects, just watch it. It is absolutely masterful. There's a small scene of like stop motion. There was a whole lot more that they actually didn't even use. There's a miniature set when they, down in the tunnels and they blow it up. There's so much going on in this movie from a special effects standpoint. And really analyze the scene where the guy gets his arms chopped off. I'm telling you, once you know that there's a different actor wearing a mask of the actor that is supposed to be in the scene, like you can't unsee it after that. You can't unsee it. Like once you notice it, like you can't unsee it anymore. And it happens really fast. So
yeah, that's why for me everything kind of blended. It happened so fast where everything matched. So I didn't even think about, looking at who it was. You automatically knew it was the doctor. He put his hands down and then he bringing up nubs.
Right.
I didn't even think that it would have been somebody else, because it was just seamless. Everything was seamless, man.
Yep, whole different guy. So another aspect of this movie that I think is really important is just the psychological mind fuckery of it, because there are movies that are like claustrophobic, and there are movies that are suspenseful, and there are movies that make you just think about what's going on and try to figure out what's going on. This movie does everything. It all happens in one location. Like you never see anyone in the States. There's no locations other than this Arctic station. So your story has to be good, it has to be compelling, it has to be interesting to make the movie interesting. The psychological aspect of it, where you can't trust the person next to you, and you're isolated because you can't go anywhere. Like, bro, that's horrifying. Right. Like, that shit is horrifying, man. And I think that, this John Carpenter, man, he nailed it. He nailed it with this one. You can say, well, it's the adaptation of a short story. Okay, well, it's a short story, not a novel. And it's from the 30s. This movie came out in 82. All right. You can take the best story and fuck it up on screen.
Yeah, it's happened several times.
Happens all the time.
Films, yeah. right.
And he didn't mess this one up.
Not being able to know, and just humans just being untrustworthy. Just not trusting each other, because that's in our nature. Kind of side-eyeing each other. Or jealous or hateful under behind the scenes. And I think he really built a foundation off that. And you put a creature in the midst of all that, man, that changes shape. Perfect storm, man.
Right.
Perfect storm.
Right. Shapeshifter. I mean, it's so hard. It's lightning in a bottle. Like it's going to be really difficult for someone to actually like remake this movie. Like they would have to come up with an entirely a related story, but just don't remake this movie.
Right. Yeah. It wouldn't do well, because then you'd be copying.
Right.
You could do similar things, but you couldn't
do
this. You couldn't make this.
Even the prequel movie that came out 2011, I didn't hate that movie, but it doesn't have the same. Even though it tried to play along the same paranoia, it didn't do it the same. It didn't feel the same, because it was trying too much to be like that.
Right. You kind of felt what was going on, like you could tell.
Right.
Certain things. It wasn't so still like this film is you really they made it to the point where you really couldn't tell anything, especially if it's your first ride. Now maybe you come through again, yeah, your antenna was up, but the first time, nah, you were what the heck is going on?
Right.
You trying to figure it out. Just
You could watch this movie 2 or
dumbfounded.
3 times and still not pick up a lot of the cues.
Still miss some stuff. Exactly.
Yeah.
This was perfect.
Masterful,
This was perfect.
masterful. Another aspect that makes this movie so great is John Carpenter doing what he does with music.
Right.
Like,
The soundtrack, man, was freaking just wonderful.
Yeah, and it was
music fit.
yeah,
It was good.
and it was a Morricone, Ennio Morricone.
Ennio
Morricone.
Yeah.
This to show you how good this score is, because it's Carpenter had his hand in it, but Morricone was like the main driver of this, the main score of the movie. And there's parts of the score that weren't used in the movie that it's so influential that Quentin Tarantino used the unused parts of the score from this movie in The Hateful Eight. So if you go and watch The Hateful Eight, the opening of Hateful Eight, that theme song that plays, it sounds eerily similar to like The Thing. It's the unused portion of the Thing soundtrack of the soundtrack for this movie.
They gave him permission. They gave him permission.
He got permission. Yeah,
Wow.
he got permission to use it.
That's cool as hell.
So it's so eerie. There's not a whole lot of like music in this movie. There's a Stevie Wonder song that plays and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very superstitious, which it makes sense honestly.
Yeah.
But it's really like these low doom 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 doom, and it's so perfect. It's so perfect for this movie.
It was different than the sound was different, I think, than all of the films that he had done during that time period, like Escape from New York and The Fog. It kind of had that eeriness to it, but not like this. This really fit the atmosphere. It was something about it that made things seem a little bit colder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you could, through the music, you could really feel like it was chilly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's just what I got from it. But it really fit the atmosphere big time, man.
It's
wonderful.
Perfect horror movie background noise. So, question to you. I know The Fog is at the top, if not, near the top of your Carpenter list of movies. Where does The Thing place for you?
I would say it's a close second, because simple fact is that when I originally watched it, I took it as a sci-fi film back in the day, but now going back as an adult and watching it and being able to incorporate all of these different emotions and feelings of untrust and the questions about the creature and just so many different elements, man, it basically bumped up my love for it, because it's one of those films where you could sit there and talk to somebody and debate the little snippets of it for freaking days, man.
Exactly.
It's one of those films that it has a presence. You can build a relationship with it, just from the questions and the conversations, talking on the nerves about it, man, and see what other people thought or think about different scenes, and just build off of that, man.
Yeah.
It's one of those films you kind of backpack it, carry it with you,
When it comes to Carpenter's, if I rate Carpenter's movies as like worst to best, to me it's his best movie, and it's at the top. And he's got Halloween. I've said this before. Halloween isn't even my favorite Halloween movie. Halloween 3 is, and that's just my dumb opinion, but whatever.
Right.
But he's got Christine, and there's so many great movies. They Live. It is, to me, his best, most perfectly made movie. But if you ask me what's my favorite John Carpenter movie, I'd tell you it's They Live, because it's almost the antithesis of The Thing, where The Thing is like the psychological horror film where you got to watch it multiple times to figure out what's going on. They Live isn't like that. It's a social commentary that still makes sense to this day. Actually, like, it's still relevant, and it's a more fun movie. You know what I'm saying? It's more popcorny and fun and kind of ridiculous a little bit, but like the message is incredible and the score is great and the movie's just really fun.
Oh, yeah.
So if you ask me what is his best movie, I will tell you 100% The Thing. My favorite John Carpenter movie is They Live. That's just me.
I can dig it. I can dig it. Best performances.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell always does a great job, man, being a hero. This film, he basically like nailed it. Macready's up there with Snake Plissken. Actually, I like Plissken better, but that's just me. But I think Mac was a really good character. But you got to give it. I think that Wilford Brimley, he needs a little bit more recognition, man. I mean, the thing that I got to tell you, he's one of my favorite character in here. So reason being is because you saw him processing so much stuff. And he did it like in a realistic like manner where like when he got questioned, like when Charles was like, man, you believe this voodoo crap, man? What the, he was just sitting there like, he didn't really say much. Strong silent type. He didn't say anything, but he knew what was going on from the evidence that he had gathered. And it's just his delivery, man. So many times you saw him before he said his line, when he was reacting to another character, he paused and just made it so realistic to transfer back and forth. The communication was just wonderful, especially when he was talking to Clark.
Yeah.
Especially when he was talking to Clark. So Wilford Brimley, he's got my trophy for best actor in this film.
Right.
But you had others. I mean, I think Childs kind of was Childs. Don't get me wrong, Keith David always does a great job, but I just think Childs was kind of like just one of those characters where it was just like just be this guy, and Keith did a really good job. And there was a couple of other ones. I think Windows and Palmer were just cannon fodder, man. I just think that they were just there to die. There wasn't too much of them there. Gary, who was played by let me see, go back real quick. Donald Moffat. I remember him from Popeye. He played the tax guy. And Popeye, I got a thing for Popeye, man. I'm sorry. But he again another guy that kind of made it really, really believable as far as like just being him coming from just a normal, maybe military background, being captain or supervisor of a ship, supervisor or maybe base shift or whatnot. And for him to take in all of these things and try to be still that leadership person.
Yeah.
And you saw when they had the issue, he kind of, willfully, passed the torch. Like, hey, maybe you guys will feel a little bit better if I'm not calling the shots. So he tried to offer it to Norris, and Norris was like, man, I'm not up for it, But I think he said he's not up for it because he was a moth. He was one of the freaking creatures.
Yeah.
Again, the creature wanted to be background and inconspicuous. Like, I don't want to put no kind of flashlight or on myself. So no, I'm not up for it, dude. So that's when Charles was like, I got it. And then Macready was like, nah, man, you ain't level-headed enough. You're not getting the keys, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I didn't ask you who your favorite character was. I mean, who you think gave a really good performance?
Oh man, I mean, obviously, like the obvious choices, Macready, Kurt Russell, but
Kurt.
to go with the not so obvious. I always just liked Child's character, man. Keith David, I always just related to him because
He's got a
like even back back then, it kind of reminded me of my dad a little bit, back then. So like, I don't know, I always got down with Child's character, man. One thing I forgot to mention, man, when I was talking about Carpenter's best, for whatever reason, I forgot to mention one of my favorite movies, which is Big Trouble in Little China. So now I don't even know. I might have to mix my list up. So I'll come back to that another time. Whenever we talk about Big Trouble in Little China, I'll remember to bring that up. This freaking movie, man, is like, it is to me a masterpiece of just movie making. On the surface, it's a creature feature.
Right, creature feature.
But it is so much more than that under the surface. And it's done.
Yeah.
It is written, directed, and edited, basically perfectly. Like, it's hard to find holes in the story because the story itself doesn't lend itself to have a lot of holes, honestly. I just
Unless
think,
you're
man,
picking.
right. You got to be really picking, and you can pick with any movie.
Picking.
Like, let's be serious. You can pick
Yeah.
with any movie.
Right.
But for this and for a horror movie, like, how often is there a horror movie where you really gotta pick to find something? And it's you know, it's like Jaws, man. It's basically, you know, perfectly made when it comes to horror movies.
I think down to the wire, the last thing that kind of grips everybody is just inevitable, man. Like it just has a grimness to it,
Yeah.
and the grimness is like that ball in Indiana Jones. Like sooner or later, it's going to get you.
It's gonna get you. Yep.
You
Yep.
can't escape it. You're gonna get contaminated. You're gonna get into it with your buddy over trust issues, whatever it is. It's gonna get you, and that's what I think carries this too.
Yeah.
It carries it from this inevitably. It's your turn next, buddy. You know, and I think a lot of people don't like to be able to digest that. Like, nah. Everybody wants that good ending, but that's why I think this ending was the best, because it just kind of like left you hanging in a way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it also intensifies that dread, like you're next. If this thing gets out,
It's
you
a
know
wrap.
what I'm saying?
It's a wrap for the world.
Yeah. Got one more question too. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, go
We're
ahead.
like 3 hours here.
Yeah.
But check this out. Let me ask you a question. And, you know, and we can get the viewers to analyze this too. If the situation was different, what I mean by different meaning, if the creature walked into the U.S. camp as a clone and it wasn't pressed for survival, do you think it would have acted different? You think it would have just blended in and observed us? I think the reason why it was in survival mode because of the way it was pushed into our camp from the Norwegian shooting at it. But it makes me wonder, would it act differently if it was more of a calmer, hey, just kind of wandered in, hey, how you doing? What's your name? Oh man, I'm lost, man. Come on in, you know, we got extra bunk for you, stuff like that. He might have observed us, you know what I'm saying? He might have maybe changed a couple folks, but that's what I'm saying. You don't know the end game of why these things do what they do and why they have to absorb and clone. But I always wondered, outside of that pressure of, you know, fight or flight mode, what would that thing be doing?
I think that is an interesting question, because you're right. If the creature just kind of came to camp, like you said, it was lost or whatever, it could have just stayed. It could have just stayed at that one person in this human form until they went back to the United States,
whole winter,
and then just absorbed random people in the States and could have taken over. That is actually a really good question.
This makes you think, man.
Yeah.
Outside of that pressure of fight or flight, would it have acted differently?
Netflix, we got a story.
Yeah. Don't steal it.
We could talk about this movie forever. Seriously. Like, if we want to go deep into the special effects and behind the scenes, because there's a whole nother story behind the scenes. This is almost as much as like talking about Jaws behind the scenes. But we might have to revisit, you know, the behind the scenes and do a spotlight on like Rob Bottin and all these guys later. So anyway, folks, really appreciate y'all sitting through us, you know, nerding out on this movie.
Definitely.
Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, like the video, and please, suggestions. If y'all have suggestions for movies that you like to see, actor spotlights you like to see, stunt people, whatever, leave a comment. We'd love to hear it. We'd love to see it. And, you know, spread the word, share the video, share the channel. We really appreciate it. Alex, you got any parting words?
You know, if you've never seen this film, please watch it, enjoy it, and we'll see you in the next one. We got plenty more coming.
That's right. Y'all take it easy.